Guillaume, I guess the two of us should start with a little description of our history. We know each other. We've spent some time roaming together. What stands out? Tell the listeners a little bit how we know each other.
So we met in Nairobi. I hate to say it, but like maybe 20 years ago, and we started basically. And I think I came to see you the first time at your office, and I said, "Look, there's this story which I think is interesting." And yeah, and shortly thereafter, we were on a tiny plane that barely flew towards Turkana, which was a lake infested with huge crocodiles. And that was our first story together. And it was the beginning of many, for many years around the continent.
Yeah. I have a lot of fun memories. And so I'm really excited about this book. I know a lot of work went into it, and it's not just beautiful photos, and they are beautiful, but it's a really thought-provoking book. Before we get to it, I wanted the listeners to get a little more of a sense of you. And you are not someone who, like me, just arrived in Africa late in life and tried to figure it out. You were actually born there and you have family history there. So talk a little bit about the Bonn family and Africa.
Okay, so it's a long story, so I'll try to make it short. But basically, my great grandfather came to Madagascar as a colonial officer for France and married a Malagasy woman,
Hmm.
which was at the time quite extraordinary to just use that term. And then my grandfather was born from that marriage, and then my father, and then myself. And then later on, I was just born in Madagascar. I didn't grow up like like my forebear, like my father and grandfather. But we started. My father shortly after that started traveling around East Africa. So we went to the Comoros Island, Djibouti, North Yemen, and then eventually came to Kenya.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, so you know Africa and you've spent a lot of time there. So the book is called Paradise Inc. And I wonder if you could just start with the title. What are you trying to get across for us with this title?
I guess it's my dark, dry English sense of humor. I wanted to juxtapose the fact that Africa is still part of the preconceived ideas that we've been fed with, which are the sort of postcards, beauty, and it's this incredible place, where you're surrounded by elephant, giraffes, and all those incredible animals. And then at the same time, because the book deals with conservation, I wanted to sort of amplify in passing that it's a business. And so that's why I juxtapose it. And I guess at the same time also I wanted to juxtapose the fact that it's the fragility of the beauty of Africa.
Well put. You start the book with a foreword written by a Maasai elder, and the Maasai elder wrote, "I lead a council of elders who advocate for peace between human and wildlife in my village." So his name is Eskiel
Ole Katato.
Ole Katato. Tell me a little bit about him. How did he come to write the foreword to the book?
Yeah. I thought it was important to find a voice of somebody who actually lives on a day-to-day with wildlife around him, and what it means to be invaded in your village by wildlife, and how it is to still think that as a Maasai, because the tradition, goes back to living side by side with wildlife, how it is in the 21st century to still live that way. And so he was Ezekiel was introduced to me by a friend that we have in common, and we started basically talking for weeks, for months, and then we eventually realized that we were saying the same thing. So in a different way, and so I asked him if he would be interested in joining the book and writing this preface because I thought it was important to have that voice.
That's great. And then you have a noted foreign correspondent who a lot of people who are tuning in will know, John Lee Anderson of the New Yorker. He wrote in the introduction that Paradise Inc. is a requiem and perhaps even an epitaph, but it is also a personal plea by Guillaume for the book's readers to shake off their illusions and to see things as they really are. And then he wrote, before it's too late. Um, is that a good description of what you're trying to do here?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, basically, I did this book because it's kind of a quest and a reflection on trying to start a conversation about something that we all think is being taken care of, i.e., the preservation of wildlife and the landscape that where the wildlife lives. And so we all think that the usual suspects are basically taking care of it, and that is not the reality on the ground. In my lifetime, living in Kenya and growing up in Kenya and going to all those places that I've photographed for many years, I have seen with my own eyes all this beautiful landscape basically vanishing in front of my eyes and being replaced by by farms, by little villages, by unmonitored human dwellings, and I was asking myself, why is nobody talking about this? Why am I still seeing stories or books that are simplifying the issue of Africa and keeping it in that box of the postcard of Africa, where you basically only show the beauty without factoring what's happening around those postcards, so to speak, right? If you're looking at a national park, and so I wanted to expand the vision and look at it from a macro way rather than fueling the ideas that we have of Africa.
So we're going to be showing some of your photos as you're talking, but give us a sense of just how bad the situation is. Are wildlife disappearing? Will these animals that people go on safari to see, will they be around in a generation? What's your view?
I mean, obviously, I'm making this book because I think there is hope. I wouldn't make a book just to show my pictures and say, look, it's doom and gloom. I am doing this book because I'm trying to raise awareness. I guess it's an idealistic way of doing it, but that's the only way I know how to. So I do a book because I think there is still hope and I think there is a way. And so I wanted to introduce also in the book the fact that there are little solutions happening and they are working, but they're not going to work for long in the statu quo of how the system is set up right now. What people don't fully understand is the system as it is now is a system that was introduced a long time ago when the colonials arrived, and it's what we refer as fortress conservation. So basically, the colonials arrived and they came for sport hunting and they shot animals left, right, and center until they realized that if they don't actually do something about this, there won't be anything left. So that's when the national park started. And in the midst of doing that, they didn't factor in the hunter-gatherers that were there before them, and those very people became poachers, and we told them blankly that if they were coming to the national parks, they would be arrested or they would be shot on sight. So in that's basically still pretty much how the system is set up today. So it's all about saving and preserving the parks, but without factoring what's happening around the park, and which is in essence a bit crazy because parks have always been designed in a way that they are, smaller than the capacity of the animals that need to go and feed in the park. So typically what has happened is the animals always fed outside of the park. And today we're in a situation where humans have advanced so quickly that everything around the park now has been cut down. So if you look at a park, say from above, you will see that inside the park it's lush, it's green, it's beautiful, and just outside of the park it's basically a desert because all the trees have been cut down because people need to warm themselves up, people need to cook, and people need to build. And all of this is unmonitored, unchecked. And this is the situation we have today. So animals now are in direct conflict with humans because animals still need to go outside of the park to feed themselves. So um, if we are looking at Kenya, for instance, the beauty of Kenya is most of the parks are not. If you're looking at another country like South Africa, they decided that that war was basically lost and they decided to fence it all to. So it's two different scenarios, but in essence, what we are talking about here is all the areas in Africa that are still not fenced, where animals depend on the out, on what on the surrounding of the park to be able to feed themselves.